Yo, what's shaking, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. I'm Geoff Ketchum. That's Anwar Richardson. We're talking about Isaiah Neyor's commitment signing, actually. Like, my man didn't even front when he announced his commitment. He was like, and it's signed, flips from Tennessee to Texas. And Anwar, like before, well, real quick, everybody like the video, subscribe to the channel. Do it now, by the way. So you're going to hit the button. Hit that button right there. Subscribe to the channel. Yeah, do all that stuff. Leave comments in this comment section. Like, I'm just doing all things we're supposed to do when you do a YouTube video. I think this is a really big deal for the Texas offense. And suddenly you could look at the skill positions on this Texas team. And on paper, you've got maybe one of the best 1-2 wide receiver punches in the country. You've got maybe the best running back in the country. You've added Billingsley to the tight end position, so you've kind of upgraded there. Like, this is a Texas offense that has, without question, gotten better since the end of last season. And to me, this is the cherry on top of the sundae, because this is a guy that was an all-conference player in the Mountain West a year ago, 13 touchdowns on a running offense. He's a big-time playmaker in the sense that he gets down the field vertical. This makes the offense better. It makes, I think, a guy like Xavier Worthy better. So everything about this, there's a trickle-down effect. I think in a world where a lot of times we hype up, even if unintentionally, portal additions or commitments and what is it going to mean, this might not be one that we can hype up enough. This is a big one for Texas.
It's really big when you start talking about, like you said, not weapons, and it's really catches because it's a two-pronged kind of conversation, right? It's about Texas adding weapons, but it's also about Texas building around Quinn Ewers and being able to provide him with enough weapons in order to be successful in year one. And look, that offense from a receiving standpoint was Xavier Worthy. And Jordan Whittington, when he was healthy, was very good, very productive. And when Jordan went out, that was it. I mean, they just didn't have anybody else to lean on. And when teams started kind of focusing on Xavier a little bit, and became a little bit tough sledding at times, it was tough for him not to have someone else to take pressure off. But now, it can't just be, okay, it's going to happen a lot. Let's just focus in on Xavier. You got to focus in on two guys. That's going to be tough. When you talk about adding in Billingsley, now you talk about adding in Bijan, all of a sudden you're like, man, there are a lot of freaking weapons, and the thing about Neyor that I really like is, we know he's established, right? We know what he can do. We know what he did at Wyoming. And so you don't look at it and say like, guessing, sometimes the catch with these transfer portal guys that come in, it's guesswork, right? This guy was a reserve. He was a backup. And so you're doing some projecting. We know this guy checks the boxes. And now what can he do with a five-star quarterback? This offense, it has the potential to be really, really good this year, Catch.
Yeah, it really comes down to, on some level now, that offensive line's got to be stabilized, and can Quinn Ewers develop rapidly, because it's not going to be a case of him not having enough toys to throw to, which, you look back at last season with Casey Thompson and or Hudson Card, you go into the beginning of the season, it wasn't a plethora, an overabundance of players that they could count on as playmakers. By the end of the season, it was, if Xavier Worthy doesn't do it in the passing game, maybe nobody will. Let me read you a little bit about what The Athletic, Max Olson, had written about Isaiah Neyor. The Athletic had Neyor as the number 3 available prospect in the portal. It's a big deal. This would be the equivalent of like a 5-star portal guy, which is ironic because he was a 2-star in high school. They write in their blurb about him, Neyor just wrapped up his first 1,000-yard season at Wyoming and has been a terrific big play threat in 2 seasons with the Cowboys. The second-team All-Mountain West selection caught 44 passes for 878 yards and scored 13 total touchdowns this season. This is the key for me. his 13 catches of 30 plus yards ranked second most in the conference and among the top 10 nationally, averaging 18.6 yards per touch during his career. This is a dude that makes big plays. And opposite of Xavier Worthy, it's just not what we thought about that other wide receiving position, that outside wide receiver position for the Longhorns. At no point last year did we think, oh man, on any given play, the person playing that position could go for 50. It just does so much for this offense, because that's a guy that can blow the top off of a defense. And if you're messing around worried about Xavier Worthy or Bijan a little too much, this is where play action comes into play. This is where you want to double team Xavier Worthy and shift your focus there. Cool. We are going to take our shots, and they've got a legitimate, like, deep threat barn burner playmaker that can do that now. And like you said, this isn't projecting. This isn't, well, he looks good and he's got speed, and so on paper it makes sense that he should be that kind of a guy. This is a guy that caught 13 passes of 30 yards or more. This is one of the biggest big play threats in the country at wide receiver. And it goes to an offense that was screaming for a guy exactly like that.
Yeah, I mean, is it too early for us to give Brennan Marion some props here?
None, no way.
You know,
right on time.
Because look, I mean, this is the one thing that, you know, Ketch, and I have to give you credit, because it's not to smash on the previous one, but you had your questions, and I think you were the first person that had questions about, okay, can he do it as, you know, can Coleman be the guy, especially from a recruiting aspect, you know? And Brennan Marion comes in here, and, you know, you talk about Texas missing out on a lot of key guys, you know, in the 2022 class. And Brennan Marion comes in here, and within a few weeks, Ketch, I guess if Max Olson has as the number 3 guy, I'm assuming that's the number 1 receiver in the transfer portal. Would that be correct?
I'd have to look and see where they had Mario Williams.
Okay,
but I mean, it's up there. I mean, yes.
So we're talking about it, arguably 1 or 2. You know, so when you were able to say, hey, you snagged number 1, number 2 in the country on, you know, you're still losing GPS to get around Austin, but him to be able to bring that in there, I think it says a lot about the, you know, immediate recruiting impact that Marion is having. But that, again, Ketch, that addition of Xavier, having Xavier, having the addition of Marion, then, you know, having Jordan Whittington, then being able to say, okay, whoever else is healthy, whoever else is ready to go, you know. But yes, it's Ketch. It's January. We don't want to pour any Kool-Aid, you know, and I think you and I are going to still take a conservative approach, but it's very clear that Sarkisian saw that there's a need to upgrade. He's got Billingsley. He's obviously, I mean, they're doing the damn thing in the transfer portal, you know, from an offensive standpoint. You know, it definitely should be making this team a whole lot better.
I mean, as far as I can tell, Neyor is the highest. You know, so the way the Athletic does their rankings is when a guy commits, he goes off the list. Mm-hmm. So they have, to give you an example, there have been 5 different guys ranked number 2 as a portal available guy, because they've all will decommit, and then another guy becomes number 2. The highest rated that any receiver has been on that list is Neyor at number 3. Mario Williams at one point was number 4 on that list, and then Jacob Cowan, the wide receiver from UTEP, who had a profile similar to Neyor, although maybe not quite the big play specialist. Those are by far and away the top 3 wide receivers that have been in the portal. I mean, nobody else, I think, really comes close to those 3 guys that they were able to get Isaiah Neyor. And what's really interesting here, he was enrolled at Tennessee. So the kid commits to Tennessee. he was enrolled as an actual student there. And one of the things earlier today popped up on orangebloods.com that maybe pointed towards Neyor coming to Texas was that if you looked at Neyor's name in the Tennessee student directory, he's listed as a student, but it says out on 1/20/22.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So it all happened within like an hour of, all of this. But, that guy had gone so far as to, he was enrolled in classes and they didn't give up. This is one of the things I really liked about this Texas staff. And look, I'm critical by nature. Like I nitpick. You mentioned kind of my criticisms of Andre Coleman. I ask questions in real time when they happen. But I also like to think I'm really good about when someone deserves an attaboy to be on time with that attaboy. One of the things about this staff that we've learned late in the last month or two is that they don't take no for an answer in the best way possible. It would have been real easy for Isaiah Neyor to commit to Tennessee, enroll in classes, and to be like, all right, we got to move on to the next guy. Don't waste our time. Some coaches would say, don't waste your time with a guy who doesn't want to be here, or make that guy want to be here. Like that. And that's what they've done. And when you go back and you look at the situation with Kelvin Banks, you look at the situation with a number of guys in recruiting down the home stretch, Cameron Williams, a lot of fans, when they lose out to kids, get really bitter about it. I hope that kid doesn't have success and good luck playing for this guy or that guy and not getting the ball. I think it's a real credit to the Texas staff that when they've seemingly lost talent that's critical to them, that it's almost like being told the Dumb and Dumber thing. It was like 1 in a million. Oh, so you're telling me there's a chance. And it feels like they are very good at believing in so you're telling me there's a chance kind of ideology. And it has absolutely worked out for them in recruiting this year in a big, big way. Guys that it looked like they were done for. They end up signing for Texas, and that doesn't happen, excuse my language, if the coaches act like a bunch of little bitches and take it personal. This staff's really good about keeping its nose to the grindstone and not stopping until the race is actually over. And this Isaiah Neyor commitment / signing, because I guess he's already enrolled into school, or he's on his way towards being enrolled because he's signed to play for Texas. It's just another example of that. And of all of the things that I would say this coaching staff has done a great job of, and this is right at the top, because I don't think this isn't the way all college staffs operate. A lot of these dudes get their feelings hurt when they lose in recruiting, and they can't help it. They'll say something snide. There'll be a little bit of hard feelings on social media. Texas has never done that, and I really respect their ability to take hard news as good as they can and to not let that get in the way of their efforts to continue to try to win guys over. And it paid off here in a big way because, Neyor, if we're thinking about even high school receivers, we're talking about, of all of the receivers in college football that are available right now, high school 5 stars, whatever, he's in you can count on one hand, a couple of fingers, how many guys are better suited to come in year one and make a huge immediate impact. It's a huge, huge win. Brennan Marion won't get credited with like a 5-star commitment. In a couple of years from now, it won't be like, oh, remember he got this guy committed, but he should. And I don't know what star ranking to give a guy in the portal because that system doesn't really exist. I do know this. Mike Farrell gave Isaiah Neyor one of the highest rankings in terms of impact players in the transfer portal. He gave him like a 9.0 out of 10. And it was either the highest or the second highest ranking that he's ever given a college player making the jump in the portal. Can't say enough about what Texas is getting. And I can't say enough about Brennan Marion in really short, quick time. Like that, he just paid his salary.
Really. I mean, you're right. I mean, that because anything that, I mean, in advance, technically, Catch, because I don't know if he's received a paycheck yet, right?
He probably hasn't received a paycheck yet.
Depending on where he would have fallen,
Yeah.
like he may not have received a check yet. Like he still may be running on fumes from Pittsburgh at this point. It's huge. The one thing that I when you talk about giving people credit, first of all, Marion deserves a shitload of credit, as I said before, what he's able to pull off. And one thing I give Sark credit for as a recruiter, and like I said, no matter what I may, want to see from him on the field, and I think me wanting to see things on the field is a reasonable expectation. But as a recruiter, again, Catch, you coming off a 5-win season. That's not the formula for success recruiting from a recruiting perspective. It just isn't. It is the formula for wait and see. I don't know. Let me go to something that's more solid and more proven. And maybe NIL plays a little bit of a deal and it helps Texas. And if it does, to the victors go to spoils. But to come off of this, what would be really disappointing, and to be able to say to convince guys like Catch, he has to sell them a vision. Like he's got to sell them a vision of this is where we're going to be. And it can't just be playing time. Like it's got to be something more than that. Yeah. And he's able to outline for them, this is what we're doing. This is how we're building. This is the plan. And this is how you can help. And to get all these people to get on board, to get a ton of offensive linemen. Catch, you've recovered recruiting for the longest of time. Sometimes they're like, hey, too much talent in one class. I'm gonna go somewhere else where it's it's gonna be easier. A guy like easy to have a guy like Devin Campbell on the hook and say, nah, you got some guys there. I want to go somewhere else. To be able to sell that, to be able to stack talent in the room, even Billingsley. To have him come in and you could say, all right, he's done stuff at Alabama, but there's a 5-star in that room. And Billingsley could easily say, nah, I don't necessarily want to be a part of that. To be able to have guys that come in and say, no, we believe in you. I believe in everything you're doing. I want to be a part of it. Even if I didn't see the results in 2021, I believe we'll have the results in 2022. That's a hell of a recruiting job. Like that's doing more than just recruiting. There's a better word for it, and I don't know what the word is, but just using words to describe it, it's one of the more remarkable of recruiting jobs that I think I've ever seen.
All right, look, go over to orangebloods.com for all of the continuing breakdown of this edition for the Texas offense. By the way, boy, there's a lot to do. Maybe our next video is the impact that Quinn Ewers has already had for this Texas football program, because it's hard to believe that without Quinn Ewers, that Neyor makes this jump and maybe Billingsley doesn't make the jump. And, when you look at what this offense is going to be in the fall at the skill positions, the upside of Quinn Ewers has probably been a very big draw in all of this. And like I said, maybe a video for next week at some point. But for now, go check out the modcast. If you missed it from earlier today, we did that with myself, Anwar, Jason Sukumel, Alex Dunlap. But we've got you covered right here on the Texas Orange Bloods football channel. It never stops. When there's breaking news to be had, we will be here to give you analysis. Maybe give us a like and subscribe to the channel if you've got time. Until then, we'll talk to you, I don't know, maybe next week unless some more breaking news happens. There's always videos coming out. So just be prepared for like the next video in like the next 5 minutes. Until then, you guys take care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.